Welcome everyone to day 14 of our 21 days. As usual, let's start with what we will do for today. Today we will look at Python built-ins. So some of the tools or some of the commands, the tools that, let me say so, we have access to that has already been built in the Python. Also, the developer or the developers of Python has done for us that we have access to it and just to use it. So that means code or logic that we did not write on our own, but have access to it free from Python. Then we'll take a look at Python libraries. Those ones too, we look at the ones that come with Python, but I will maybe in later sessions we introduce ourselves to how to install third-party libraries. But today we focus mainly on the libraries that come with Python. Think of the library now as a collection of code files that somebody has written. In this case, developers of Python that contains functions or functionalities that we can just call and use inside our code. Remember, like we call functions, so just look at them like they're just a collection of functions that other people have written that we can call and use in our code. And for the libraries, we'll be taking a look at the CSV library. I promise you today that we'll take a look at how to read and write to CSV files also. So that's what we'll use. And then the math library, and then the OS library. The one too, I mentioned it yesterday. That is why it is part of the selection today. There are many more libraries, but these are the only three that we will explore for today. Okay, let me bring up PyCharm. So what are the built-ins? So as I said, they have been built inside the language. So you don't have to write those logics from scratch. You just have to know how to call or use them also. So we have been using some of them actually. If I have a list here, maybe called my list, I have a typo there, my list. I can set it equal to say 1, 2. Now, if I do it this way, okay, fine. Let me just mess up the numbers. And there are other, I have one there, I shouldn't have one again. Let me clear, I just want to mess that. We are looking at a sorted function. So let me just type them in randomly like that. Okay, so one of the built-ins that we have access to, we can just say print. Print itself is a built-in. If we hover over it like this and put a cursor on it, you see that there is a folder here, the icon that looks like a folder, and the name there. Sorry, something is not responding. Did I press any weird key combination? Let me try and zoom in again. This folder is called built-ins. That means that this prints function, so to speak, that we have been calling it from the built-ins that come with Python. So let me be curious a little bit and click on built-ins and see where it will take me to. It says it's a module. A module, think of it now like a Python file that contains functions. So it says built-in functions, exceptions, and other objects. So that means that built-ins that we are taking a look at today is just functions, exceptions, which we'll take a look at in later sessions, and other objects. So like I said, it's just functions that other people have written that we are using. So in this case, this print that we are using is a function that the creators of Python wrote. If I press Control, I think it should be Command on Mac, or I press and hold it, and I click on this. See, when I hover my mouse on it now, nothing happens. It's just still the same blue print text I see. But if I press Control, now the cursor changes to a pointing hand. That means I can click on this and it will lead me to some particular place on my computer. Let me click on it, holding Control. And then it opens a completely different file for me that I did not create. See, the name here is called built-ins.py. Built-ins.py, talking about can be found. Please, I just showed you this for demonstration. In no circumstance should you modify the code here unless maybe you really know what you are doing or you want to customize Python for yourself. Please and please again. An editor like PyCharm will even prevent you from doing that. So if I try to add in another, I try to type and you see that it's prompting me that it's a non-project file. The file does not belong to the project that I'm using. And so I have the option to allow editing, but I will not do that. So please don't change it. If you're using a different editor that may not prompt you, please do not change it. Other than that, you mess with Python and you may have to uninstall and install it again. So you see here that it's at line 489. That is a lot of lines of code, at least for us, and for what we have been doing so far. So if I scroll through it, I'll see quit, array, PR. Each of them has their documentation. This one returns the string documentation or representation of the object. There's round, set attributes, sorted, sum, vars, and all. But if you want to learn about this is not where I'll recommend that you do. You do it. And I'll show you how to get access to the documentation. Yes, so that you can read a lot from it. Or you can even do a quick Google search online for Python built-in. So there are lots of them. I have selected ones that I want us to look at. So the first one is the sorted. I think we saw it there. You see here that even before I click enter to accept this suggestion, so that it's coming in from built-ins. So that is where it is getting this sorted function from. And this sorted function can pick in my list, and then it will sort it for me in ascending order. Sorry. So I see that it's starting here from 0 up to the largest, which is 9. I can actually do reverse. So if I say reversed and I set this to true, by the time you know how all these things are working, know that this is probably a default parameter that I'm overwriting here with a true. So if I run again, now it should start from the largest, which is 9, to the smallest, which is 0. Okay, so let us take a look at another built-in function. Okay. I have some list here, but I'm still trying to go through to. As I looked at it again, I'm still looking at how to really get the simple ones. Okay, so there's another one that we can easily find. So if I declare number to be equal to, say, negative 35, and I want to get the absolute value of this number, so the absolute will only return give you as the absolute value. So I can just go print. And there's another built-in that is called ABS. You see that is coming from built-in here. So what ABS will do, it takes in something called X. So that is just the parameter referring to the number we want to get the absolute of. So if I pass in number here, what I should see in my terminal is the absolute of negative 35, which is 35. And also, I think one of the days I told you that you explore how the computer sees numbers. So this is how I think it's the ASCII encoding. I'm not so sure, but I'm sure I cannot say that objectively on the live stream, but I think it's the ASCII encoding. If I want to see how the computer sees my numbers, I can just say var, or my characters to be precise. I can say for the A, let's say a variable called A. If I print now the CHR, which is the character representation, you can see that you can think of it like that. It says, okay, it is not ASCII, it's a Unicode string. Remember, I told you yesterday that there's ASCII, there's Unicode, and other ones, which are all text encoding formats. So it returns as the Unicode string of one character. Remember, it is one character. You can't pass in multiple characters or even more than one character. So if I pass in the var here and then I print this one, I should see, oh, it says expected. Sorry. This one expects an integer, sorry. So if I say printing, how this one works, please don't get confused. If I pass in 65 here, I should see like A on my terminal. I think so. Oh, I chose debug, sorry. I'm supposed to run, not debug. I should see A, yes, the uppercase A. Because inside the Unicode encoding, 65 is for the uppercase A. And so if I want to use the reverse of this, I can now say variable equal to A, sorry. And then the reverse of the CHR function is the ODR. So is it ODR or ORD? Then it's ORD. What the ORD will do is that if you want to get the numeric encoding, so to speak, of any character that we are interested in the Unicode format, how the computer actually sees the character, we can use that one. So once I run the A, it should give me 65 also. So let me just be curious enough here to put in the $sign and see. So if I type something like a $sign, the computer actually sees 36 using the Unicode encoding. That if that is how my file is encoded, or like in this case, if that is how Python is running, if it is running in that encoding or representing or reading the characters in that encoding, that is what it will see. It can even also take in emojis, I'm sure. Let me bring up my emoji panel here on Windows, and I'm putting one of my favorite emojis and see something. So if I send you this emoji here on WhatsApp, that is what you see. But inside your phone's memory somewhere, this number is what is represented. Remember, I told you that the computer uses numbers to represent everything that we do, zeros and ones. But this is not in the binary format. That's why we are not seeing it in zeros and ones. So if we refer to the Unicode table, we can see the binary conversion of this. I think we can convert it here, but I've forgotten the step to do that. I can't, yes, I've forgotten it. But that is how this number is represented in the Unicode space. So you can check it in for anything that you want. That is also it about this. So if I send you something like, hey, or let me say hi, we duplicate this one. So over 1, this one should be I. And then I print the order var and that of var 1. So if I send you hi, let's maybe add an exclamation mark. So that should be var 2. If I add an exclamation mark, so if I send you this message on WhatsApp, I can't pass in 3. That's why I have to do them one by one. So if I send you this message on WhatsApp, and then print this one to so var 2, hi with an exclamation. These are the numbers. This is something that your computer will be seeing. So it will be seeing 104, 105, 33. Yes, so that is it also about the odd and char. If maybe you want to see the full message displayed in Unicode, we can maybe say hi. And you can map over strings or loop over strings more technical. So I can say for maybe character in message, I can choose to print ORD. Why am I confusing it? Of the character, and I want it to the end to be just a space. So I'll put in space like this. so that I will see all of them on one line, just like the message itself. So you will see hi, but the computer will see 72.105.33. So that is it also about this ODR. There is another one that we can also explore, like the max. So if I have a list of another my list here, and let's just pass in some random numbers. So get some random numbers I'll type, and then okay. So if I want to get a maximum here, I can just say print. There's a function called max that is also coming from built-in, and I can pass in the I trouble here. And so if I ask it for the maximum value in my list, it should give me the maximum value here. And visually, we can see that that was correct. And so just as the max, there's also the minimum. I can run it now and then see 27. I don't know whether there is average. Is there mean? No. But there is also one called sum, which will sum all of these for me. Unless we confirm with the calculator, but we can be sure that Python will give us the correct answer. So that is it also with the sum. And then there is str. We've used it before. There's some. There's also one that I want to introduce you to. The str will convert something to a string. So if we have maybe a number of, say, 45, and then we print str of 45, we should see 45. Oh, sorry, of number. We should see 45. But if we go ahead and now print the type of what we are printing, we see that it's actually a string and not a number. So the type, which is also the type itself is also a built-in. So they are all from that one. So we see that it's a class of string, even though there is a number that we have there. So the str is also there as a built-in. And then the last one that I want us to look at. So if you have an expression, a valid mathematical expression, not just any expression. So I can say 2, say, plus 3 being multiplied by, say, 5. If I print, there's one called eval. You can take it as a short form for evaluate. I cannot really assure you 100% that that is the full name, but you can take it as such. Let me check the comments if there are any. Oh yeah, I think there was one. Okay, so the shortcut for inserting emojis. If you are on a Windows machine, you just press the Windows button and then the period or the dot. So if you're on Windows, just Windows, the Win key plus dot. Let me see if I can put the shortcut as a banner. Emoji shortcut for Windows. I'm sorry, give me 1 minute here. Okay, so that's the shortcut there. You press the Windows key and then dot. That should pop up your emoji, a window for you to select anyone that you want. If I print this one now, what the eval will do is that it will evaluate the mathematical expression and give me back the result. Now, we know that multiplication will come before the addition. So 3 multiplied by 5, that should be 15. And when we add 2 to it, that should be 17. So we know that the output is correct. So if you are building maybe like a calculator, a mathematics game, or even some things that will have to generate and evaluate expressions. It looks simple like this, it's able to solve it, but I'm sure even if you add up to some little complex expressions, it should be able to still solve it. I have not tested it against complex expressions, but I'm sure it should still be able to do that one for you. Okay, so that will be it for the Python built-ins, and you can just inside your favorite search engine, you can search for Python built-ins. You should get some good websites that will link you. And then I think there's one website that I can link you to. Let me see if I have it still in my bookmarks. I don't think I have it. Maybe I'll have to search for it. If I find it, I'll send it on the WhatsApp platform. But you can hold a minute. Hold on a minute. I think I found the website. You can equally search and then you find it also there. So it's a very good website here. So up here, let me bring the site. Okay, something is wrong somewhere. My systems are not responding. Okay, I'll bring it up if it decides to respond. So you can learn more about the built-ins there. There are other tutorials too there that will help you. But for now, let us focus on the libraries. Okay, so I told you that look at the Python library or a Python library as codes that other people have written that we can have access to and use. Okay, so the first one that we will explore is the CSV library. Now, how do we get access to the CSV library? There's another keyword that we have not used up until now, which is called import. What import does is the literal meaning. So it imports something external into our current file. So there are lots of things that we can import, including built-ins, many things. You can see that I'm scrolling through the list, and it's quite a long list here. But what we are interested in for today or for this moment is the CSV, not the one with the underscore. Once we do import CSV like this, it is like we have imported a whole collection of functions from the CSV file or module that we can use in our code directly. Okay, we are good to go. I don't know why the website is giving me the problems. I think I do have it now. Let me try and preview it, hoping that I'll not get any errors. This is the link, tutorialsteacher.com/Python. So if I press enter, let me hit it also as a banner. Also in the chat, and let me bring it up as a banner. Yep. So when you come in here, you have a lot of things here that you can learn, a lot of things that I have not even covered in this tutorial. can all be found on this website. So I really encourage you to check it out if you want to take this learning to the next level. So a lot of things in here. I'm looking for the place where they will see built-ins or something like that. Uh, yep. So you see built-in methods here. So there are a lot of them here that you can explore. Yeah. Yeah. So I think it has other stuff apart from Python also. So once there's slash Python, that means that you can have access to other things also, which are with here. Okay. Now let us look at how we will work with the CSV library. So let's say we want to, let's first create a file because we don't have one. If I show you my the 14 directory, so that it's only the day14.py file. So let's create what we call a CSV file, which is the short form for comma separated values. You understand why it's called comma separated. That is simply because the values in the entries line by line, entry by entry is separated by a comma. But if you open it with tools like I think Apple Numbers, if I got that one right, Microsoft Excel, Google Docs, or Google Sheets, sorry, they should be able to allow you to view that one in a tabular format, but in actual sense, it is a comma separated value file. Okay. So let's just create some data that we may want to write into a CSV file. So I can see data here, and as a list of lists, I can see the first. Let's make the first one to be the first column, and then later I will pull it out and show you how you can properly write headers. So let's just say name, and then let's have let's age come, and then we can also have the person's city. Am I forgetting to type it as strings? Okay. So the next line will be the entries that I now have. Let me now accept Python's default stuff. It cannot give me the same thing twice. So let this one be Alice. Okay. If the city Smith, that shouldn't be the case. I'll come back and change them. Okay, so let's just take these three. We have been using these names a lot, so I think it's just good to do that. We can say this person maybe is in Chicago, and then this one Ruby, and did I get the spelling right? I think it's this way. It's Python really sure about the spelling. And then this one should be error. Okay, so we want to write this data into a CSV file. How do we do that? You know from yesterday that you have to use the with open, and then we can now say, let the file name be data.csv. Let me take the suggestion. And then in here, you don't have to put it in the right mode. The right mode will create the file if it doesn't exist. Sorry about that, pop-up. If it doesn't exist and all that. So for now, let me end it here and say as file. And then I can now say that if you want to write to a CSV file or using this CSV library, you have to create what we call the writer. So think of the writer like the person who is, like if you are creating the CSV file or writing data into a CSV file, that is a more technical term. You will usually open a CSV compatible application like Microsoft Excel, and then you begin typing in the data. So you are now the writer who is writing it or typing in the data. So we have to create a writer also which will do that job for us. That is open the file and go through it column by column, row by row, cell by cell, and insert the respective data as we want it to be. So we can now say, can give it any name, but conventionally it's called writer, which is called to that should be equal to the CSV that we imported up there. So CSV dot writer, and then we have to tell it the file that it will write to. So that is the file here. In fact, this is just a variable name I know you know. So if I name this one as even CSV underscore file, that's the name that I have to put here. Okay. And then we can now say writer. So writer dot write rows. There are a lot of, well, there's write row, which is for a single row, and write rows. Because we have more than one row, we want to write rows. Rows. And then we pass in the data, in our case, which is data itself. Okay, so let me expand my window here so that you know that I'm not cheating. Of course, I know you know I'm not cheating. That was just a joke. And to right click here, you see that there's no file here called data.csv, but if I right click and run, there's one more file here. Any intelligent editor, like when you double click, it should be able to open it for you. So you see here that our data from the list of lists has been rendered here, but not like what we are looking out for. In fact, if you open this one in any CSV compatible application like Google Sheets, you get to know that these are just rows and columns. I think I can edit as table. I don't really know whether this edit as table option is available for you in the community edition. I don't know, but I'm not using it to do anything. I just want to use for visualization. So if let me click on open table here, and it will format it for me as a table like we see in uh, Google Sheets or Microsoft Excel. So you see that I have row one, or the header. It intelligently assumed that the first row will be my header, and that was right. Uh, I think I was reading on the documentation today, and some changes have been made to the CSV file in the current Python versions, the CSV library in the current Python versions, where it's able to look at the data, even if it is reading it. The part I read was for the reading. I didn't know that it will apply to the writing. When it is reading the data from the CSV file, it will look at the first column. If the data in there like describes what is following it, it knows that, okay, these are headers and all that. So in the case where it looks at this one, it's called name. Looks at this one, it says John, Alice, Bob, and age. These are numbers to know that, okay, the first column is a header, even if we don't specify that one. So you see that after that, it's giving me null rows. So null unset. That means that this one doesn't contain anything. And if I want to prevent that problem when I'm writing CSV files, let me, here you can see new line. In fact, if I put my cursor on this so that the parameters will pop up and I zoom in on them, so that we have a lot, we can set the encoding and all that. But what I'm looking for is called a new line. It's a string and it's currently set to none. So let us now set it properly. So new line, let's make it empty like this so that we don't want it to go to a new line when it's created. So when I open it now again, now you see that it's properly formatted. Again, I'm sorry if you don't have access to the tabular view. I'm just using it for demonstration so that you will tend to appreciate it more at your end. Like the tabular data you have probably been viewing all this while up to now. But if I should take it back to, now you see that the null values are not there. If I should take it back to, how do I bring this thing back? Because I've not been using this. The tabular view, I think this one should exit it for me. Wow, it's brought up something else. What have I done? Okay, okay. Is it this? Okay, now let me open it on my. Okay, it's just down here. I didn't see it. I mean, the text will bring it up fine. So this is what you're probably seeing. So the reason why they call them comma separated value is that, you see, if I switch back to the data view so that you see my table, now you don't see the commas. It is where the commas are that are being represented as cells. So each of wherever you see a comma, that means it's going to a new cell or a new column in this case. So you see that John 25 and Chicago were being put into new cells because they were being separated by commas. That is why the name comma separated value. So if you're using like Google Sheets, what Google Sheets is doing for you behind the scenes is that it is looking at all these commas, and like Python has done it for me, converting each of them into a separate cell for you. Okay, let me check if there are any comments. No comments, so we are good to go. Let us continue. So this is how we write data into our file. The other way I wanted to show you is that in case I have the headers, I think for the new versions of Python, the library has been improved to do that automatically, like we saw in this case. But if we had the header in a separate file or a separate list, maybe you have it in a separate list, so you can do that also. You can say headers, which is just a variable name. You can give it anything that you want. Is this. So in that case, before I write rows, I'll now say writer dot write row, and inside it I'll pass in the headers. So let me now change it. So data new.csv, so that to create a new data for me. So when I run it now, run was successful. Why am I not seeing anything in here? Allowed access from something. How am I getting that error? Okay. So that's the data new.csv. So I'll not convert it to tabular view. You already know that it will use the comments to create cells for me. But this is the data new, not the old data. If I open that one to up, you see it's also resting somewhere here. So the two look the same, but the data new first wrote the headers, and then before writing the data, which we did manually by ourselves. But I think if you want to write your data, you can just put the headers in the first list tuple. You can use tuples also, and that should do it for you, because I think instead apart from also the reading that is able to intelligently extract the header from the first row, the writing tool has been modified as such. Improvements keep on coming as new versions of Python also keep on coming. Okay, so that is how to write data to our CSV file. Let's see how we can read the data also from the CSV file. So now we know we have our CSV files. Let me go ahead and clear this. We still need our import up there. Oh, yes, let's delete that. We don't want to write again. So if we now want to read from data, it's not so different. We still have to use the Python's file interaction interface, so to speak, to open the file and have access to it and all that. So we go again and say with open, and let's read, this is a relative part, so I can just type data.csv, which I said, no, I wouldn't recommend, just do /, which I explained yesterday, so I don't have to extend the time by explaining it again today. It's in the read mode. You know that we said a new line, sorry. New line is this, so we don't want to. Is the new line even necessary in the reading mode? I don't think so, but let's keep it there for now. If it gives us problem, we will take it away. And then we can now say reader, which is just a variable name. You can call it something actually anything you want. It's csv.reader. You know, when we're writing, we use the writer. So if we're reading, we have to use the reader object or function there to do that. And then here we pass in the file that we want to read. And so let's print reader and see if that will work. Okay, it says CSV reader object at, and this is a memory address. So the memory on my RAM where that particular file was read into. So, you know, when we perform all these operations in programming languages, not just in Python specifically, it kind of accesses our RAM and uses the memory as and when it has to. So this 0x that you see here is not an error code, it's just the memory address or the particular place in memory where that file was read into. So think of this one like you have your wardrobe or your shelf, anything like that that can store stuff like books or any items, and then you take a particular book and put it at a particular place on the shelf. So let's say the shelf was labeled maybe 1 or 2 because that's the second box or the first box. This is also the address in memory where my file was read into. So that means that this is not how we can easily print it out like we saw yesterday when we called the read or the read line. We can easily print out that one. Fine, this is an object. So if we want to print it out, one of the ways is to loop through it. So we can say for line, we can give this variable any name. You can either say I, but I try to make my code readable. So for line in reader, I forgot to bring the in. For line in reader, what I want to do is to now print line. And then now I get it properly here. Not as an object, but the actual values themselves. And if I even want to store this, the data in another, what do you call it? A list or a tuple. I can use a list comprehension to do that. So let's see how that one can be. I can now say that maybe file details that should be equal to line for line in reader. Sorry, for line in reader. And I can choose to print this file details or even use it anywhere in my code. So I can come down here outside the loop and then print file details, not file itself, file underscore details. I run that one too should give it to me like this. So in that case, I've been able to read the data from the CSV and returned it as a list of lists. That is what we got back. See that there are 2 opening square brackets, and each of these is in its own list. So we can loop over the list, and then do whatever we want to do with the values inside. And you know that we can use indexing now to access. So if we want to access the first line here, which is John's data, we can do file details 0. And that will give us only the details of, oh, sorry. I know you understand why. Because I forgot to count the first row, which is the header. That is the index 0. So if I want John's details, what I have to do is to access the first, and then that will do. Okay, so if I also want just the name of John, I can go ahead and access the first element of that list also, which is at the index 0, and now I have John. So assuming you are reading this one to perform any operation, this is how you can go ahead accessing different columns and rows, so to speak, to hack around it. If time permits, we will look at more sophisticated libraries for handling this type of data set, like the CSVs uh, called pandas. Or you can also, out of curiosity or taking this thing further, explore it for yourself. If you will ever do that, the library is called pandas. You can search for it, and then I'll show you how to install your third-party libraries maybe tomorrow or the day after, but that will be one of these days, so that you can install your third-party libraries and use them in your code. Python community is very large. People have written a lot of these functionalities and algorithms for you, so you don't have to invent the wheel from scratch. And when you are doing stuff, you can just call the code that people have written and speed up your development process, putting emphasis on the things that really matter instead of rewriting algorithms that have been written by other people. Okay, so that is also how, in the very basic form, we can read files from the CSV. There are other ways around it that I did not explore because I'm thinking that is a bit advanced for our start here, but there's also the Dict reader. Let me see how that one also plays out. I think that one returns us as a dictionary, and so we have a particular key error. This one going away. And you see that one, the Dict reader, instead of the ordinary reader, the Dict reader returns it as dictionaries. That's why it was given as the key error. So that's one, it will return each of the rows, the column. So it's intelligently assumed that the first row is the header, and it was right in this case. So inside the dictionary, what it's to do is that it will take the first row, and then the first value in the header, which is the name. It's assumed that that is for John. The age is 25. The city is Chicago, mapping each of them through like that. So if you want something like this too, you can use the Dict reader, but I will not explore or go into details with the Dict reader here for this session. You can read more about it online. And so if there are any questions, let me address them, or we move to the next. Okay. Yesterday, I promised the OS library, so let's work on that one. If we have time, we explore the math library also. Other than that, you will have to explore that one on your own. So the OS library is used to interact with our OS and to perform some basic stuff that we maybe do by clicking or some manual navigation on our PCs. Okay, so let's look at how we can also use the OS library. We get rid of everything here. This comma separated library. I don't need it here for now. And then we have to import OS before we can use it. Let's say we want to print the current working directory. We can say print, then inside an F string, that is the current folder we are working in. Say the current working directory is and then in here we can pass in os.get CWD. So get CWD, you can see as the short form for get current working directory. So that is what this will do for us. So if I go ahead and print it out now, you see that this is my current working directory, my desktop inside the day 14 folder. Okay, so there's also one that we can use. So files here. Let's say that if we want to list all the files in a particular directory or folder, we can say os.list there, and then we pass in the particular path. So we know currently that we can use the get current working directory to get the directory where we are working in. So that's what I'll pass in, os.get CWD. So if we print files, You see that it returns a list of all the files in there. There is the day14.py file, which we are running now. There's the data.csv, which we created earlier. And this one we created later, just a few moments ago. So if you want to list all the directories also, that is what you can do. I just hope the stream is smooth today because most of my staff are freezing on the other screen. And in fact, there are a lot of these things. So if you want to find out the items in a particular library, like I called OS, I can do OS and then dots. If I do dots, an editor like Python will bring up all the functions, so to speak, that are inside it. So a lot of them. The get stuff are here. There is also the other stuff that you may not really know, most of them that I've not used before. Let's explore this make there. That one we don't have to list it in a variable. If we say os.makedir, that means make directory. And so if we pass in a relative path, an absolute path will also work. We can say dot slash, or even if we eliminate the dot, it will create it in the current directory. So we can say new folder. Okay. If I expand my Explorer here, you see that there's no folder called new folder inside day 14. But if I run process finished with exit code 0, and then now if I zoom in here, I see a new folder here created. So I can use this also to create a new folder. I just hope there are no questions here because the screen is not even popping up for me to. Most of the stuff are not working on my second screen here. Okay, there are no comments also. Okay, so let's see what else we can do with the OS library. If we want to also like get information about a particular file, we can use what we call like print os.start here, start. And then we pass in the path to the file, so we can say ./CSV. Let's see what to data.csv. Let's see what to give us about our data.csv file we created. A lot of things that may really be confusing now. But for now, this time you see here is actually time. We can convert this to see the time that the file was created and modified. Sorry. So this, I think the C time should be created time. I've not really used this os.start, but these values you see here are time. In fact, if we go ahead and import another library called time, which also counts default with Python, it was not part of today, but let's see how we can convert that time and make meaning out of it. So we can say time.strf time. Maybe you are wondering how I get to do all of these things, and that is because I've been doing them for a long time now. If I pass in a format here, let me just accept this default. This means that gets me the year, month, and dates, and the hour, minutes, and seconds, and then time dot to local time. Then I can pass in this particular value here. Let's see what this one gives us. You see that this is the CT time, which is C time, which will be the created time. And when we converted it to a meaningful format, It's printed it out here like 2024, this today's date, and the time that the file was created. Okay, so it is happening like this. This is how computers usually count the numbers and keep track of time. They don't keep up track of time like we do in HMS and maybe to milliseconds. These ones, I think they are milliseconds or so. Some it was they started a count some time ago, somewhere around I think 1960, 1970. There, I've forgotten it, so I cannot absolutely give you the time. But if you Google around it, you find out that that is why they started counting time in the computer's memory. So that is the number of seconds. Is it milliseconds or seconds that has elapsed till or since that time? And so that is it, how we keep track. I'm not going to go into details of all this next. I just wanted you to understand how these values will make sense to you. But the size here also is the size of the file. Please give me a minute. Let me come. I'm sorry about that. I had some knock on my on the window, not on the door, on the window. So I had to check it. And so you have also seen that there's also one called time that we can use. So the statistics will give us the statistics of the file, which you found out that it's not really something that is at our level now, but at least we also found out that there is also called a time library that we can use to convert time. And then we have also learned that computers keep track of time. In this way, they started from, you can check it as you can maybe Google when computers started counting time. And then around 1960, 1970 there. What else can we also do with the OS library? In fact, I cannot teach you everything with the library. If you check the website I gave, you get to know a lot of stuff about it. And so we can also join path components. If I say a path equal to, and then I can say os.path dot join if I want to join one or more paths, and this is really recommended. You don't have to use plus string concatenation, because if you export your code to a different operating system that doesn't use, let's say I'm writing my code on Windows, now I use hard-coded concatenation to build my paths. For instance, if I want to refer to a file that is inside this new folder, let's say I move data.csv here, and I want to refer to data.csv. If I do hard-coded path, I can say maybe I still need the os dot get cwd. I can do plus, and then I can say slash folder, and then no, it's called new folder. Sorry, new folder, and then I can manually again go plus and then slash. What's the name of the file? Data new .csv. If I print this one out, I'm expecting it to give me the full part of the file, like in a format that is still readable and accessible. Where is it? You see here that we are even getting we are starting to get some errors. So let me just print again so that I'll have a blank space before the actual logic. Now you see here that it's getting the current working directory using backslashes. And then when it started the concatenation, I even forgot that you use a backslash. I'm using a forward slash. You can just imagine what this inconsistency may bring, the error it may bring. So you don't want to, some paths actually use backslash, double backslashes like this. Is a double backslash or forward slashes, but whichever one that they use, some systems use double slashes to separate the folder folder tree. And so you may not really know if I export this code to you on Mac or Linux and you run it, you may get an error. So we use the os.path.join, and what the OS library will do is that it will intelligently, it knows the operating system it is working on, so it will see how it can join the paths and create a path that is compatible with the operating system. So if I go os.getcwd, and then I can join it to say folder, it's called new folder, and then I can now the name of the file was datanew.csv. So let me also again print this path and see. Now you see that everything is in standardized form, and that is good. I know that if it is on a Mac, it will use the Mac's path format to see how it will create the full path here for me like this. So that is also about joining directories. If I want to, what else can we do again? Let's say you are writing a program that checks or requires the user to give you a file path which you will later read, like the CSV file that we read. So I'll rather make this one a full program. So we are writing a program that asks the user for a CSV file as an input, reads the file, and then prints the output on the screen. So I'll say CSV file path, that should be input, and then here I will say enter path to the CSV file. I'm explaining an OS concept, but I want you to understand it practically. That's why I'm doing this. And then we will say here that with, open, and then we can say CSV file path here, file path. Where is all this pop-up coming? And then we want to do it in read mode as file, and then we can say reader equal to CSV dot reader. I'll not use the Dix reader, I'll use this one here. You see that I did not have CSV imported, but once I type CSV dot reader, PyCharm imported it for me. If the editor you are using did not do so, be sure to import the CSV library. And then I pass in file here. Here I can say for row in reader, what I want to do is to print row. Okay. And then now let me run. It asks me the path to a CSV file, say data.csv. And it works because I gave it what is now a relative path. That file is found in here, so Python is able to intelligently complete the path for us. Data.csv is here. Now, let me now run it again and give a path that does not exist. So data underscore new.csv. I ran into an error, the file not found error, which is great for the demonstration purpose, but not great for our code in any sense. Like if you're writing a program for somebody and then something like this happens. So if we want to check if the path that the user provided is a valid file on our computer, a file that actually exists on our computer, we can use the OS library to do that. So if you are writing any program that lets the user import files or type in file paths for your program to use, this will come in very, very handy. I can say here, file exists. This is a variable that will turn out to be a Boolean variable. So I can say os.path dot is file, and I can pass in the CSV file path. So what this one will do is that it will return true if the file exists. If not, it will return false. And so I can now say that, let me just cut this one for now. I say if file exists, I can say is true or equal to true. Which of them will work? You see that Python is even trying to simplify it for me. This one will all work. In fact, if I run the code now, I can put an else statement here. Else print the file you type does not exist. Run. Let me type in new underscore data.csv. Now it says it doesn't crash. It says the file you type does not exist. Let me run it again. And then type in data.csv. Now it reads it for me and then displays the content for me. But this is not what you usually would do. You can just replace this one with if file exists. Even if the value here is initiated to false, this expression in the mind of Python will always evaluate to if file exists equal to true. So you can choose to ignore the equal to true or the is true in this case and just replace it with is file exists. So this one will also check for us if there is a file. There's also called the is there, which checks if the particular provided path is a particular directory that exists on your computer. I think we have exhausted the time, our 1 hour limit, even though we are not limited to 1 hour, but I'm trying to just keep things consistent here. And also, I cannot show you all the things that are in these particular libraries. That is why I recommend that you visit the website and then you can explore it up on your own. Okay, or you can also go to python.org where we downloaded a Python for the installation. There should be the documentation section. You can get access to the documentation for the version you are using. And most of the documentation is not written for beginners, like you and I are starting, but you may still find something useful there because if you are able to read English, some of the things should not be difficult for you to grasp. Okay, so as always, I'll give some 1 minute for questions if there are any. If there are no questions, then we'll close chapter on today too. Once again, I'll put the website also here down here, tutorialsteacher.com/Python. You can get access to all of this and most of the methods that are in there or functions. Okay, so I assume that there are no questions. So as always, thank you for your time today also. And I encourage you to always keep practicing. And if you have any questions, you can message me. I know I will respond. And also you can put it on the common platform so that the whole community will come in and help. And the advantage of doing that is that somebody also might have the same problem, even now or in the future, and will also benefit from the answer that will be given. But if you still think you should WhatsApp me privately, that is also allowed. So until tomorrow, that will be bye for now. Keep creating. I'll see you tomorrow.